Welcome to this week's edition of This Week in Perfect Team. I am your host, DRC, and with me, as always, is Your Kidneys. How we doing tonight, Your Kidneys?
Doing good.
Well, you look good. Loving this new webcam that we've got going. There's a lot of high definition now. These fans are getting a view of you they've never had before, and I must say, I will speak for them. I must say that they will like it.
I'm just ready to change it up every stream just to keep Walnut happy at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep mixing it up. Let's get to the blimp cam soon. Let's get the behind cam. Let's get it all going. Every angle of This Weekend Perfect Team. As we're starting here, shout out to Chuck as he has dropped 10 gift subs on the channel. So thank you, Chuck, for everyone who's in receipt of those. Welcome to the clubhouse there. And definitely shoot Chuck a big thank you there. And then we've got Crash dropping a huge load of bits on the channel too. Thanks, Crash. Thanks a ton, man. And Mac Jack subbing. Holy cow, we've got a big party going tonight. All right, besides having a big party, we've got a great show for you tonight as well. So what are we breaking down? We're breaking down the 12 new cards that Chris just dropped on us because that's who we are. We are the show that provides instant community feedback on all new releases, and we got a steamy one tonight. We got one that ticked a lot of the defensive boxes. These perfect team cards and how they fit into the meta oftentimes comes down to how competitive they can be from a defensive perspective. And it just so happens that we're talking about an entire content set revolving around defensive competency. So we got a lot of cards that we really need to break down tonight and understand where they're going to fit and what's going to happen to cards that they're potentially knocking off. And excited to get into that tonight. After we're done with the card rundown, we have everyone's favorite game show, OK Boomer, OK Zoomer, and the theme tonight for OK Boomer, OK Zoomer is only the biggest stars, as we will be challenging Kidneys to recognize some of the biggest movie stars in movies from the 90s that the 90s had to offer. And then when we're done with that, we are going to finish part 2 of our Bronze Tourney Bonanza, where we are going to get into pitching. We're going to talk about the considerations you need to know for how to select a staff for Bronze. We're going to talk about some names that you should be thinking about. And we're going to talk about all the different factors that make up a successful sub as well. Bronze hype indeed. So if you're new to the stream, please do click the follow, as JPack14 just did one moment ago. Please do click the notification bell so you know when we go live. And here's the broadcast schedule of what we bring to you. So on Thursdays, we bring you this show, which is always jam-packed. This is our flagship show. You never want to miss a Thursday. And we come on right after Chris, so it's hard to forget about us. On Sundays, we broadcast the Perfect League World Series, and we do that on the mothership. We do that on the Out of the Park Twitch channel. And that starts anywhere between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern time based on when the Perfect League World Series starts. Be sure to join us. And then on Tuesday, we've got a different type of show, an interview-based show. And this coming Tuesday, we're going to have none other than Perfect Team card artist Daniel Wallner. And we're going to learn about the process that he goes through. We're going to learn about what some of his favorite card sets and art sets were. And that should be a very fun and interesting episode for us, for sure. Let's jump into the meat here. We start, and we are going to go in order of the cards ascending. So we're not starting with Honus. We're saving Honus for last. So we start with Dick Bartell. So what do we have here with a silver tourney card for Dick Bartell? So you see he's got shortstop defense, which means you're not going to be able to play him at second, not going to be able to play him at third. So how good is the shortstop defense? You know, it's 87 range, which is going to have a hard time unseating your Bronzy there, as Bronzy has significantly higher range than that. But this card's going to hit a little bit. This card's got a BABIP that I'm guessing that Kidneys is going to have something positive to say about, with that super low power and then the decent contact to go with it. So Kidneys, what do you think of Dick Bartell?
I am in a hot debate in DMs right now with Wait Till Yet Next Year, who is our silver analyst, who is telling me that he thinks the best silver shortstop right now is going to be possibly the Andrelton Simmons we got tonight, and I am saying that it might be the Dick Bartell we got tonight. And we're kind of going back and forth. And, I'm saying, is it George Wright? Is it Bartell? I don't think Simmons hits because his BABIP is so low. Bartell has 76 BABIP, which is pretty good because he's got the very low power. Kind of helps him keep in check. He hits lefties very well. But his defense is a little lacking compared to both the meta options, right? So, so it's really where do you want to stand? Do you want a more aggressive approach at shortstop? Maybe you play somebody like Bartell or Simmons. But if you want a more defensive approach, then you could stay with the old school Bronzazzi or George Wright at shortstop.
Yeah, I think you're not too off there. And when you guys get into a battle about Silver Tournament meta, I'm going to take a step back and see where the dust settles because you guys both have way more ability there to break down how these cards are going to play. But certainly an interesting one. And if two of you guys can't come to an agreement on it, perhaps both are worthy of deploying out there, gathering some observed statistics, and seeing where you go from there. So real quick before we move on, I want to call out Red Dude subscribing with his Amazon account. We've got Longhorn gifting a sub, Mac Jacks gifting 5 subs. Thanks so much, guys. And what else did I miss? It's Wallace subscribed. Awesome. 3 months in a row for Wallace. Man, you guys are awesome. You guys are bringing the fire tonight, and API dropping some bits on us as we move into card number 2, which is Andrelton Simmons. This is Kidney's version of the Mike Lowell card, the card that you've wanted for how long? And you finally got it. And so I'm going to yield the floor entirely to you, Kidneys. You finally got the card you've been clamoring for. Now, how much do you like it?
I'll be honest, Chief. I think Andrelton Simmons is worthy of a card that is better than a silver. When we were talking about arguably the best defensive year in modern history, non-dead ball history, I think he should get a diamond card for that. Maybe it's because it's not a peak card. We're not seeing it. I know I gave you a nice graphic to put up on stream to show off why I think he had arguably the best season of all time defensively. So I'm not sure why this is lower than a diamond card. If you look non-dead ball era, look who's number 1. Oh, look who's number 10. The only other person who shows up twice on this list is Mark Belanger, who we'll get to later. So, I don't know. Also, I'd really like a Kevin Kiermaier if this list is, any good indication of defensive players. But, Simmons is a great player, but it's a little disappointing. We got a card that's just flat out worse than this live. Now, maybe he's good in silver tournaments, and we'll see that come to fruition. Wait till next year, still DMing me saying this card is going to hit really well. But I'm looking at it now, and somebody in chat pointed this out. This is a true reverse split card. It is a right-handed batter, and it only hits righties. It does not really hit lefties. So that kind of hurts it, in my opinion, almost, because it's going to get the worst side of the pitcher splits. And I don't know. I'm really not too sold on this card for a silver tournament, but maybe this is something with more data that we can come back to in a week or two and wait till next year can tell us how he's doing.
Yeah, so just so people understand how this is going to play out, you see the ratings here. And yes, his contact 10 better versus right. The avoid K is, 17 better versus right. But we also need to factor in what's on the pitcher's card. So how is this card actually going to net out in observed statistics? It could very well be that it's pretty close to neutral because lefties when they're facing him are going to be weaker versus him, whereas righties when they're facing him are going to be stronger. So I wouldn't expect him to have wildly reverse splits in observed statistics, but you do see pretty significant reverse splits on the card here, as Mac Jacks and Chuck are apparently having the world's greatest gift war in the chat as they are matching each other tit for tat here. And thank you both for the incredible support. We could not do what we did without you. Getting back to Simmons here, I think that you're a little salty that you don't have a better defensive card for Simmons, a card that rivals an Ozzy here because of that graphic you showed that argues that Simmons has had one of the best defensive seasons of all time, if not the best. And I think you have a pretty good argument to to state there. And maybe the content cycle's not done. Who knows? We know that Walnut is getting his 102 Vlad, and we know that you are getting your Diamond or Perfect Simmons with 150 range at shortstop.
Yeah, and Staggle's got some good points, and I do want to admit that I looked into the range factor, and it was one of his lowest years for range. So this isn't like a bad representation of the year. I just wanted to meme on Chris a little bit, pulling up the card. Actually has the highest D-WAR outside of the dead ball era, and he's got a 94 at shortstop. But it's not bad. He does have probably around the proper range for the range factor, so it's not terrible. I don't want to call him out there. Marksman brought up a great point that the right-handed bat, he might hit around neutral because he is a right-handed hitter. But wait till next year, still throwing at me that no silver shortstop hit. George Wright doesn't really hit for anything other than contact, and
bite your tongue.
He doesn't really hit. Yep, and it is my favorite card because I love Andrelton Simmons. He's like my favorite player in baseball, and I can't help myself. So there we go.
I mean, we've all witnessed now that you talk with a different level of assertiveness when you're talking about Andrelton. I feel like there was a level of passion coming through in that last soliloquy that we don't often tap into. So I'm going to encourage Chris to drop an Andrelton Simmons every single week, just so that we can yank that right out of you, as Chuck and Mac Jack still trading shots within the chat there. And thanks again to you both. You guys are wild men, and I love it. So, Kidneys, this is your favorite card within the set. Is it for any other reason than what you've already stated?
If you haven't, I've told so many people this. Go look up highlight reels of Andrelton Simmons, and you'll see why this is my favorite card. Dude is unreal. He is, in my opinion, the greatest defensive baseball player of all time. And I think you can easily hold that opinion. It could be right.
Excellent. So we move on, and it is Brooks Robinson time. We've got an 83 rated gold card here, and this gold card is bringing some monster defense for a third base card, but it just comes down to how much is it going to hit. And oftentimes we're looking at cards, and we're looking at that avoid K to make sure it's not going to be a card that is striking out a ton. And this card passes that test. It's not going to strike out a ton. It's avoid K versus right. Is extremely strong, a 92. Versus left, not bad at all at a 76 for a low gold card. But how good is the contact that it's going to make? We know it'll make contact, but is it the type of contact that we want? And we see a contact rating of 60 versus right and 49 versus left. And we've got some power on both profiles there, which could be a BABIP threat for us. So I have a lot of questions about how deployable this card will be and how competitive this card will be within an established third base gold meta.
So I want to talk BABIP. So we talk a lot about the bird profile, any birders in chat, but the thing with this is that there is something worse than a bird for your thank you, Chris, for that. There is something worse than a bird for your BABIP, and what that is having a bird profile, but also having a high avoid Ks. I see DRC reading that. And if you have a bird profile and you have avoid Ks, your BABIP is just destroyed. And this card, actually, I just clicked on it to see the BABIP on my sheet, and I started laughing because I don't think I've ever seen one this low before. It has a 29. Generally, you have above a 50. Anything at 50 or below is considered you don't hit. So having a 29, it's normally about like 50 to 100 is your normal hitting range. This card can't hit a ball in iron, in my opinion. He won't strike out, but he's not going to, and every ball he's going to hit is going to go right into the glove of a defender. And that's just how the game functions. For example, I have him hitting a solid 162 in like a perfect high diamond environment, and that is with a very high avoid K, which normally brings out, good hitting stats in a player. So even with okay defense for third for gold, I would highly avoid this card. I'm sorry, I just can't stop laughing. I've literally never seen a BABIP so low before.
All right. Well, I think that the effect that you're talking about here is what we see at play with the Cal Ripken face of the franchise and other cards like that at higher levels. And I also think that the explanation which you just gave, which was well done for sure, is still counterintuitive. So for any of the new viewers that we have, or for any people that don't quite catch that relationship, and I see Fire Red JP asking in the chat, like, so why does high avoid K hurt? Now, why would it be bad for a batter to not be striking out? So can you walk us through why that is and what contact really represents?
Yeah, so contact is it's not a real stat. What contact is, it is BAPIP plus power plus avoid Ks combined. And so if you're wondering what BAPIP is, if you're a newer player or if you haven't tuned into our stream before, BAPIP is batting average on balls in play. And how that plays out is when you hit the ball, it's basically kind of your chance that that ball becomes a hit. So the lower your power and your avoid Ks to your contact, that sort of ratio gives you a higher chance to get a hit when you do contact. So him having a very low contact while having a very high power and avoid Ks gives him a very low BAPIP, which is sort of your true contact rating. So he's not going to hit for contact. If you're curious more about BAPIP, you can DM me, look on my spreadsheet, and I have the BAPIPs listed for all the cards, and you can see more about that.
Awesome. We move on from Brooks Robinson into Charles Johnson. And Charles Johnson, we'll transition to story time. Charles Johnson was one of the first players that I ever got to see in the minor leagues. So the Marlins affiliate way back when was the Kane County Cougars, which is in a far west Chicago suburb, back when they were affiliate for the Marlins, and headed over to a game there. I think the ticket was $1, maybe $2. Got some lawn seats. And there was one player that just jumped off the page, jumped off the screen, jumped off the whatever you want to call it as we were watching the game. And it was Charles Johnson. I mean, he hit a couple homers in the game. He was absolutely in control of every at-bat he was taking. And then defensively, he was throwing guys out on the bases at will. And obviously, you see anyone who's a real prospect at low A ball, and you're going to say to yourself, this guy's going to be a star one day. And, I certainly did that day. So it was cool to see him rise through the minor league levels, get to the major leagues, and really be an impactful defensive catcher, even if the bat wasn't along for the ride as well. Now, as we talk about the bat, this is your classic bird profile. Shame on me for not putting a bird icon on this profile here. But for a high gold card, this is not going to be playable with the combination of bad contact, bad avoid, and then power being the dominant trait.
Yeah, the reason I didn't really do much research on this card is because it has a overall rating one lower than Bob Boone, but it's a lot worse than Bob Boone in a lot of ways. So Gold Bob Boone, if you're not familiar, is an 89, one of my favorite cards in the game. You can play it in Diamond League, which I am doing right now. I don't totally recommend that, but it does work because his catcher defense is so high, and catcher defense has a positive, or catcher ability rather, has a positive effect on your pitchers. And so this card has that, but Bob Boone has a little bit better, and it can hit with an asterisk, but it can hit much better. So I would recommend, if you're looking at this card and you're like, I want to catcher with defense, just go get the Bob Boone, get Manny Sanguian, cards like that.
Very good. Yeah, and as we talk about how effective cards are going to be at breaking into an established meta, you just touched on a great point there. Like, Bob Boone is the standard for short side platoon catcher bats in gold tournaments. And so that's the guy you need to knock off. And you're not going to do it by matching his catcher ability, having a worse arm, and then having a batting profile that's going to do less damage. Next, we've got Mark Belanger. And this is a bit of a card here. Look at that range. Holy cow. So I would like to direct your attention to our glove similarity scores down here. We see that the 115 range is blowing everyone else out of the water, making Ozzie Smith look like he can't cover the hole between third and short. 4 more range points than Ozzy. 11 more error points, and then 5 more on the turn double play. So this card is a big time card from a defensive perspective. It is absolutely going to be better than Ozzie Smith 100, which is the card. That's the guy. If you're running a defensive build, I mean, shoot, short of that, if you're just wanting to have the best defender at shortstop, you're running Ozzie. And there's a lot of teams that will stomach his 570 OPS. That's an accurate number. Ozzie Smith has been hitting 570 OPS in Perfect League, and yet teams still love to run him. I'm running him right now in my Diamond League. And this card will play better defense. Now, how much worse will it hit? That's why I have someone like Your Kidneys who's got a regression model to tell me what we expect this card to do at the very highest level. Now, you look at the ratings and you think that is not a card that belongs in Perfect. That's not a card that should hit in Diamond. But then you look at Ozzy's and you also see a card that's going to struggle as well. So, Kidneys, what do you think of this card, and what type of expected triple slash do you have for it?
So, overall triple slash is not pretty. It's like a 200, 249, 509, but I tend to run a little bit lower than what actually happens. The thing is, if I compare it to my Ozzy slash, he's a little lower, but where this card outperforms Ozzy is V left. And the thing is, you could run this card over Ozzy very realistically if you just want the highest defense, which I think is a perfectly applicable thing to do, as you were talking about, right? Because it is the highest defense in the game by quite a lot now. 4 range is certainly a lot, because I think it might be exponential. I'm not sure about that. And then V left, it just has quite a bit of a better bat. It hits 220 to Ozzy's projected 200. And OPS is like 560 to 500 projections. So not a huge enough difference. Maybe you want to do another roster spot, but shout out to my dog. But definitely, and then it's pretty bad V right. I mean, that is not a pretty V right. We're looking at numbers in low 70s, high 60s. So, yeah. I don't know. Looking at this card, I think it's very comparable to the Ozzy. I'm hoping because it's a low diamond and it has a higher pull rate, it's not going to sell for the 1,500,000 that I've seen people predicting it's going to sell for. I think Pop and Bellinger is good. I think Ozzy and Bellinger is good. So I think it's definitely going to see play. I don't know if it's like practical. I know there's been a hot debate recently whether Ozzy is good at all. And that's kind of maybe a topic we can touch more on as the night goes on with all our defensive cards.
Yeah, and I think if you run Bellinger out, like, how much are you going to be hurt by the drop from 570 OPS to something between 500 and 550? Like, that's not that huge a difference. They're both atrocious bats. And if Bellinger is getting to 40 more balls over the course of a season, and we do have the metrics to, within rough numbers, estimate just how many more batted balls Bellinger would be able to get to versus Ozzie Smith, we can make a value judgment call there. So this is a card that is absolutely in the conversation, if not going to be the choice over Ozzie Smith, in my opinion. And again, the bat's going to be horrible. Ozzie's bat's horrible. Now, it's just a matter of how much more horrible will it be? Will it need to be sheltered where you're only playing at VL, or else you're looking at like a really gaudy triple slash line like 180, 220, something just absolutely horrendous. That remains to be seen. But I'm super excited to have this card in the game, if not just for having extra optionality at that position. Like right now, there's really no one that you can or should consider playing over Ozzy if you're prioritizing defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Maybe this card is just strictly better than Ozzy, even though technically it hits a bit worse because black hole anyway at the highest level. Like you said, platooning that little bit isn't really going to matter. Maybe you run both these cards. Maybe you run one at you run Bellinger at shortstop and you run Ozzy at second base for the ultimate, I don't hit, but neither do you anymore combo, right? I didn't even think about that until now. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, Ozzy hits 137 at second base. That's pretty out there. So I don't know. It's interesting. I like that we got so many gloves tonight. I mean, I think this is certainly the best one, and probably the one that's going to see play. But for sure, things will be tried and things will be different, and maybe we could see the return of some more defensive teams with this card.
Next, we've got Omar Vizquel, one of my favorite players to have watched growing up. Just incredible how he'd run in, make a barehand play, could make those barehanded plays on pretty decently hit ground balls towards him as well. So a card that was absolutely needed within the game, a card that represented just how much of a defensive wizard he was, just how compelling or how compelled you feel to defend the honor of Andrelton Simmons. You know, that's how my recollection of Omar Vizquel compels me as well, even though you might have more statistics on your side of that argument. And as we look at this Vizquel card, we've got a glove profile here that looks strong. You know, it's one that's better than Bronzy from a range perspective. It's better across the board than Banks, which at one point in time was a competitive shortstop that you could run at the very highest levels. It's better than the new Dalen that just came out recently. And then from a hitting perspective, it's got good shape. And by good shape, I mean the relationship of the categories to one another. So we've got contact that is one of the higher ones, paired with decent avoid K there, and then that power is lower, so we're going to be at a decent BABIP. But my concern is if the contact just isn't enough. Just isn't enough to be either enough of a bat to be a value to come in there, or enough of a glove to unseat others at the position. And I think we don't have enough glove here to unseat an Ozzy, and I just worry we don't have enough bat to unseat some of the other options. But what do you think about Vizquel, who's coming in as a switch hitter?
So you touched on it right at the end there. He's a switch hitter, and I think that is the only thing making this card even in the consideration for me, because switch hitters have a tendency to outperform models just because how projections work and they get the strong sides of the pitcher, because how switch hitters work in Out of the Park is they play the opposite hand of the pitcher. So if the pitcher's a lefty, they hit as a righty. If they're a righty, they hit as a lefty. The cool thing about him is, yeah, he's a switch hitter. He's kind of balanced. He's a little bit lefty favored, so he does hit better lefty. But instantly when I saw this card, I went running and I compared him to Robin Yount, face of the franchise, because he's got the 104 range and he's got kind of similar defensive metrics. And the issue, though, is that Yount just turns out to be a bit of a better hitter. Yount is kind of hits for a little bit less average, but has a lot more pop in the bat and can walk a bit, so he gets on base a little bit more. So I just really don't know where to play this over Yount. It could be interesting in a diamond tournament if you don't have Belanger, who's probably going to go for a ton because Belanger could be whale meta. So I think this card's probably very good for diamond tournaments. Maybe you could play him over Pop because he's flexible for both sides of the bat. Just cool. Or you could play, I think Pop has position eligibility elsewhere, so you could play Pop elsewhere and you play this card at shortstop. So, but I just don't see this making play over something like Yount or Appling.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an argument to be made, and I see people in the chat with very good points. Like, just about all the interesting cards we got tonight are beneath perfect level, so you could play them in diamond tournaments. And if you pull these guys, they're going to be a little bit easier to pull in packs. If you pull these guys, you can play them in your gold league, in your silver league, in your diamond league, and they're not going to hurt you. These are very interesting cards that have a lot to bring to the table, even if if someone has every card in the deck, they might not reach for the Omar Vizquel. That doesn't mean that he can't carry a lot of value to a team that bumps into him or that wants to deploy him on a diamond tournament team. Moving on, we've got Dave Bancroft. And Dave Bancroft, another shortstop, hitting us. A 99 rated card here with some average base running. Now, defensively, a little bit of a letdown as compared to some of the other cards that we were looking at, with quote-unquote only 102 range. And we call it only because we've just seen a 115, and then we just saw Vizquel at a 104. And then, so given that he's not the meta defense, he's not going to knock those other guys off defensively, this card's going to have to hit. And as we look at this, we've got another bird profile here. Power is the dominant trait, everything else spanning down from there. And at the highest levels, it's just not going to be enough, in my opinion. What do you think, Kidneys?
Yeah, the issue with this is the glove is so similar to the Luke Appling card, where you got the 102 range and then the lower on the error. Luke Appling having a slightly higher arm and turn double play, but you trade low power for and high eye for high power and low eye. And when we're talking about not a phenomenal hitter, trading on base percentage for a very tiny bit of slugging percentage with less contact is not a good trade-off. So in my opinion, it's just kind of a worse version of Luke Appling, even though he's got more blue on the card than Luke Appling does. It's a bait, not better than Luke Appling. Overall, probably not going to make a dent pretty much anywhere. We just got so many cool options tonight that maybe if this card gets released last week, you see it be played, in a diamond tournament or something somewhere, but overall, probably not too much of an impact.
Yeah, and one thing to point out here, as we've been doing this stream, we've been paying a whole lot more attention to this lower table here, the glove similarity scores, because that's really where the proof is in the pudding for these guys here. We have not had many hits within our bat similarity score table to the point where we really haven't even been able to explain what this is. And this table here is telling you from an overall perspective, from a VL perspective and a VR perspective, who the most similar hitters within the game are to these guys. And as we see, his most similar hitters, just like the cards that have come before him here, don't have any comps that currently play at the very highest level. So this card would really need to bring a ton of glove to overcome that. And for this particular card, I agree with you that that's not going to happen. Next, we've got Rabbit Marinville. A really cool looking card here, and a card that's got a lot to offer. So much so that I'm calling this one my favorite. And let me tell you why. We've got a bat profile that's really interesting with a 93 contact and 93 avoid K versus left. He's going to add value on the base paths as well. He's going to be able to steal bases at a good clip there, at a good success rate. He's going to be able to add value with BSR as well because of that strong base running rating. And then defensively, he's bringing a whopping 107 range to the party. 107 range matched with even strong numbers all around it with the high error, high arm, and high turn double play, and also coming stock trained. So from a tournament card perspective, deployable at either shortstop or second base. And then in addition to that, he ties to a very early moment and a fond memory of mine early in PT 21. So as I was building one of my first bronze tournament teams, I knew I needed a defensive shortstop. And Ozzy was way too expensive for my budget. At the time, Ozzy was going for like 1,500 perfect points. Who had that? But there was this little guy known as Rabbit Marinville that I had seen floating around, and you could get him for around 500 perfect points. And I'd been searching for him, hadn't been able to find him at a reasonable price. And then, wouldn't you know it, on Easter morning, and shame on me for looking out of the park on Easter morning instead of spending time with family, but I very quickly checked on Easter morning, and there was Rabbit Marinville sitting there for 480 perfect points, perfect fit for the bronze tournament team at the time, and I picked up Easter Rabbit Marinville then, and I've still fondly thought about him now. He is no longer part of the bronze meta, but will always be part of our heart. Kidneys, what do you think of Rabbit?
I think you are being baited by flashy blue colors on your screen. I don't like this card, and the reason why is I wish he had less power, especially V left. I think his BAPIP is too low, and I think we're getting Cal Ripken here. The reason I say that is he has a 56 BAPIP, and Cal Ripken has a 51 BAPIP. And the issue is that I just think it's a little bit too low. And unless you're playing maybe righty cheese and you're boosting him a bit, that he might struggle. And he's pretty one-sided, so maybe he's a good platoon with Pop in a meta. He's fast, which is great. I love the speed on him. He's got really good speed profile. His defense is really good, compares pretty well to Pop. He's Pop, but without Pop's flaws in defense, so that's good. But I don't think the bat plays at all. So I think if you're playing him as a pretty bleak black hole, just because that power, in my opinion, just hurts the BAPIP. I have him projected V left to hit 230, and OPS is 630. OBP 270. So it's just around. Honestly, it's just almost straight up worse than Vizquel, with just a tiny bit less slugging, or a tiny bit more slugging. So, yeah, I don't know. It's close. I really like the defense and the speed, but I don't know. The bat is kind of bleak. So, and the fact that he's just sitting so low on BAPIP, he might even do worse than projected, right? As we found out with Cal Ripken, baiting all of us into existence.
Yeah, I hear you there, but isn't this card bringing significantly more range than Cal Ripken?
Right. No, defensive value is going to be great. Like, there's no question about that. This is the better version of Pop Lloyd, in my opinion, right? Because his error is so high, his arm is so high. So he's really good that way, and he's got great BSR, so when he gets on, he'll be good. The issue is I just don't think he gets on because he's not going to hit the ball. Like, I just think this card might be the worst of the hitting shortstops. I might even rather have Belanger V left if I was to pick a hitting shortstop.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think that a lot of this needs to be borne out in observed statistics because, Rabbit, I agree with you that I don't expect him to light the world on fire from a batting average perspective, and the eye there isn't going to give him too much boost from an on-base percentage. So, let's say he does hit within that 230 range, maybe on bases around 275 or so. Because of the power there, he will run into a ball every now and then, hit it over the fence. So the OPS could be relatively salvageable. But, we need to also recognize that after tonight, we're entering a whole new world from a shortstop defensive perspective. Before today, it was really Ozzy and Pop. Those were really the only two range champs. And then Ripken would try to compete with them from having his strong arm perspective, trying to close some of the gap that was created by range. And today we got a whole host of people that are now part of that conversation. So while you're right that I'm probably falling for somewhat of a blue trap here by seeing the contact and avoid K there, and even for a little bit of the bird middle finger on the VL 89 there, you don't need a ton of bat to be meaningful from a shortstop perspective. And this isn't a perfect card, so you could apply everything that we've said to tournament play here and get this guy at second, get him at short. And so there's just a lot of utility here. It's a fun card. Reminds me of Easter Sunday, when I was able to pick up the bronze rabbit. And I think those that pull it will be able to deploy it in ways, or put it on the auction house and sell it for a ton of perfect points.
Yep, no, exactly. Like, I think it's good. Let's just say in context, if we're entering the new defensive shortstop wave, which I think we might be, it doesn't play over Belanger or Ozzy, I think. And I don't know if it plays necessarily over Vizquel or Pop either, right? So I think it's an option on the table, but I don't think it's the best option. Or, like, if you have all the cards, or if you're a super whale, you're probably not considering this card just because it doesn't hit as well as the rest of the pack, right?
Next, we've got Ken Boyer, who is labeled as a third base card, but's bringing you some outfield defense. He's bringing you some stock center field, and that stock center field is underpinned by a very meaningful 87 range. Now, I think the unfortunate part is that it's only stock in center, where I'm guessing, I should say I know, that 87 is not going to be enough to be deployable in center field and be a difference maker defensively. And then as we look at the infield defense, we've already talked about a handful of cards tonight that are going to be stronger than this one. So that means the pressure is going to be placed all on the bat. And as we look at the profile here, we see a very low void K to go with a very strong contact rating, but that contact rating has the heavy power working against it. So all in all, I don't see this card being as impactful as some of the other ones we've seen tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think like the BABIP's really good because the contact's high and the Ks are low. Like if either the power or the Ks are low, it's good. But the problem is you'd rather take the low power and have the high Ks because this card is just going to strike out 200 plus times a season, and that's going to limit its ability to hit the ball because strikeout comes before your ability to hit the ball in the order of the operations, right? So I don't really see this card seeing a ton of play. I mean, it's got some really nice infield range, which is great. So it's a really high defensive third baseman. Maybe you could play him somewhere else. Is he tall? Let me just double check. He is not tall. He's kind of short. I mean, he still hits 97 at first base, so it's definitely playable at first base, pretty defensively. But I don't really see this as like a super great option. He's pretty utilitarian. Maybe for a tournament, you could throw him out there as some sort of utility option, but I just think he's going to strike out too much. No, K comes after I. Yes, it's I, then K, then home run, then contact is order of operations.
You and your order of operations.
So valuable, my friend.
All right, moving on from Boyer, we've got Jim Edmonds, which has, for my money, the coolest card art in the game. With the cool, I don't even know what you'd call it, but whatever that is, I like it and want more of it, and Jim Edmonds brings some of it to us today. And he's also bringing us 111 range, which is pretty awesome until you think about the fact that Ken Griffey Jr., who's kind of sitting in that versus right option instead of Mays right now within the meta, has 2 more range and has 6 more arm. So that kind of takes the helium out of Edmonds, which means that to knock off Ken Griffey, he's going to need to hit more than him. And with a classic bird profile, with a dastardly low avoid K mark, that's just not going to happen. And you see this 100 card that has 0 hits within our bat similarity score table. 0 hits and is actually profiling close to silver and gold cards. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was asked as soon as this card dropped to project its number of strikeouts in this season, and I think I said 250, and then I ran the numbers, and it's close to 270-ish. So not really super pretty for Jim Edmonds. I have him hitting about 160 in Perfect League. So while he's got great center field defense, he is not going to hit the ball anywhere near Ken Griffey Jr. So Ken Griffey Jr. is still not the greatest hitter, but as of yet, we don't really have a center fielder that defensively competes with him. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan of deploying Griffey over Mays when you're lefty parking versus right and at home. Once you move to neutral, I feel less strongly that way, and oftentimes we'll move away from it. Like I'm currently a lefty parking this week, and when I go on the road, I'll even deploy Mays over Griffey. So Griffey really is kind of like, in the right circumstance, I'll play him versus right over Mays, but other than that, no thanks. And this card's going to be well short of the impact that Griffey has.
Yeah, for sure. Did I get a micro shame you for microing your home and away games?
Probably. I get shamed for a lot in DLL.
That's how DLL works.
Mac Jacks hit me up immediately upon finishing off a 3-game sweep. I think it was a GIF of like a Disney animation of a broom moving across the floor, and it was painful. It was painful. Still working through it. All right, we've got Melot next. And Melot brings a ton of power to the table. 143 and 146. Almost Ruthian levels of power. And he's also bringing us some defensive flexibility. So we've got an 83 range in the outfield and then 63 range within the infield. So that means that we've got a glove that really belongs either at first base or in left field if we want to get frisky and be a little dangerous. So that means that we need to have a big bat. If someone is only a first baseman or a left fielder or a DH, they had better hit a ton. And Ott answers the bell from a contact perspective, above 100 on both sides. He's got a good eye, 97 VR, 89 VL, but the The mix of power and avoid K here, I think, are the fly in the ointment for Mel Ott. If those two were reversed, A, this card would be really crazy and would probably break your BABIP model. But B would be a whole lot more playable than they are with power off the charts and avoid K really low. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. This is your entry pool dream card. You just start the game, you open up your 5 starter packs from playing Perfect Team 20, and you rip this bad boy, and then you win a billion games in entry pool because this card is bonkers for it. The issue is I don't really see where this card sees play outside of low leagues. The reason why this card is cool in low leagues is you want to stack high I to wear out opposing pitchers and then stack power to like bully them once their pitchers are all worn out. And this card does that phenomenally. The problem is this card is just kind of a worse version of Ted Williams, and Face of the Franchise Ted Williams is a card that struggles a little bit as is. He's kind of inconsistent, and he can be really good in lefty parks at home, you know. But this card is just kind of a worse version. He's got a lot less contact. He's got less I. He's got less avoid Ks, V right. And he doesn't really have anything better. He can play third base probably, and that's his advantage is you could put him in the field. But when Ted Williams' bat is kind of as inconsistent as it is, I wouldn't trust a worse bat that I would put in the field personally.
I can agree with you there. And we move on to our final card of the evening, and it's another Honus Wagner. And I can tell you that the last Honus Wagner that we had, the special edition, that was I believe that was part of the Team of the Decade series, I got a ton of run out of that card. It was just so useful, being able to get significant base running value, significant stolen bases, being able to catch a hot roll and have him just hitting everything in sight. And of course, that was balanced off by the bad roll where he wasn't hitting anything at all and his avoid K was ripping you to shreds. But we get another one here, and this one's coming with outfield defense too. Now, the range is a little light there, which decreases the positional value that you have there outside of, say, a tournament scene where maybe you want to have someone who you can throw in right. But let's evaluate the bat here and figure out how much better this bat is going to be than the last Honus Wagner, which the meta has moved on from. We still have some people deploying Honus within Perfect League, and you see those OPSs within the bat similarity score table, and those OPSs are not good enough for the glove that he was bringing. Now, this card looks to be a better bat and a better glove. So at a minimum, this card is going to be more competitive. Now, how competitive and how desirable this card is, that remains to be seen. What's your first take on it?
It's actually interesting. We're pretty far off on my projections for your Honus Wagner SE versus reality, but I am assuming it's a pretty small sample of people actually playing him. Be interested to know how big that actually is. I mean, he's just a little bit better, right, than the SE. The issue is, like, competitively, DLL-wise, I haven't seen anybody run the SE in a very long time. The cool thing about this card is its flexibility, and I think that's where it stays for me. In open tournaments, this is your bench card because it plays a bunch of different positions, and it's very fast, so it can pitch run for you. But I don't think it hits very well. V left, its strong side is a 235, 293, 643 average on base OPS split. That's not that fantastic. So it plays really good defense. So maybe you run it out there because it plays defensively and it's got very high BABIP. It's got the highest BABIP by far of the shortstop, so maybe you hope it can make some contact when it doesn't strike out, which it's going to do a lot. I have Vizquel actually projected to make more contact than this card does. So I don't know really how I feel about this card. The cool thing about it is his base running and flexibility. It can play pretty much anywhere in the corners of the outfield or all across the infield. But other than that, I don't really see it as being a starter on an endgame team.
Let's hit the brakes there, kidneys. Let's slow it down. So I just did a quick check. On my Perfect League stats, and I've got 2,200 plate appearances backing up the Honus Wagner that stats that you see within the bat similarity score. And then let's go ahead and compare line by line what this Honus is. So this Honus is going to be the old Honus with 8 more contact, 4 more avoid, 4 more eye, and then the 14 more power, which might be more trouble than it's worth. So better across the board. And then as we compare it to the VR, his weak side, it's going to be 5 more contact, 5 more avoid, 4 more eye. So it's better across the board than a card that is not horrible within perfect today. And then when you factor in the improved defense, which is going to take it well above, say, a Luke Appling, well above, say, a Cal Ripken, I think you could really have something here. And then, oh, by the way, we haven't even mentioned much that he's going to have significant base running value as well. So he's going to be able to be like a little Ricky Henderson light for you. So I think if Luke Appling is playable right now, then this Honus Wagner is more than playable. So I would love to get my hands on this and spend some time running this out versus left and then backing up my versus right and getting him into games late as a pinch runner and really being versatile and valuable across the field.
Let me see what I have for this. It's better than I expected. I have projected 180 strikeouts, 185 strikeouts V left for this card.
Who cares, kidneys? Let him strike out 500 times.
I don't know. I don't like cards that don't put the ball in play if it's going to be a weaker bat. And I mean, you could say even if this card hits 700 OPS, it's still a weaker bat, right? And he's not, I don't know. I don't really like your Luke Appling comparison. I mean, I get he's a much better glove, but he just doesn't get on base enough for me to compare him to Appling. I don't know. It goes against a lot of my philosophies, so maybe I'm being biased and I wouldn't run him personally. I wouldn't consider him V right at all. If you're going to run this card, it would be V left for me and then utility V right if you want to do so.
Totally.
I think that's totally fine. But do not run this card V right would be my advice. If you want to run him V left, maybe you platoon him with Pop and then he runs your utility and your pinch running. Yeah, it's cool. Like Quanta's saying, he does have BAPIP that's kind of comparable to Cobb's. I mean, he's got 90 BAPIP is very high. Just the issue is he's going to strike out a lot more than Cobb, so he's not going to get as many chances to do what Cobb does. So I don't think he really compares to Cobb as well, but it's certainly an option V left. That's what I'll go with. And I think the utility is enough V right that he could definitely earn a slot on your team.
We're warming him up.
Defense. I mean, he's got such good defense.
You're warming to it. Kidneys is coming around.
I mean, if I
say
had
you
all
love
the
it.
money,
Say it.
Nah, if I had all the money in the world, this would be an option as the 14th batter on my team, right? But I would never probably personally spend money on this card if it wasn't the 14th batter on my team, right?
That is the most lukewarm endorsement I can imagine right now.
That is my endorsement.
That is soft.
That's all you're getting out of me.
Yeah. I mean, I look at a world where people are routinely running Appling as their VL, part of their VL infield, running Yount as part of their VL infield, and this card is miles better than both of them. And yes, he's likely to be deficient as compared to Appling from an on-base percentage. You know, Appling, we've seen his VR on base around 320. His VL, I think, is actually slightly less than that. And this one might be less. You know, this one might be like a 260, 290 card, but this one's going to run into some power. This one's going to run into some extra bases. And this one's going to add runs on the bases and give you a better glove the entire time. So it signed me up for Honus over the existing options, and I'll give you the last word on it. If you want it. Unless you've been beaten down into submission.
The issue is Appling is good enough V right for me that I like him V right a lot, and I really don't like this card V right. And Appling is also good enough V left for me that I can play him if I feel like it. And this card is only maybe slightly better than Appling V left in my eyes. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Throw him out there as an option V left, and let's see how he does over the next few weeks. Is what I'd say.
We'll take it. And call out to Mac Jackson in the chat for gifting subscriptions to B Jam, to Tech 15. I thought I saw one.
Also, definitely play this card over Cal Ripken. I think Cal Ripken's done in the new meta of shortstops. I think with all the range buffs, I don't think 100 range can compete anymore once everybody gets their hands on the new cards. I think Cal is going to be relegated to second base. So
better be careful. Quanta Condor was defending
Cal
Ripken in the chat earlier.
I'm making a bold call.
Finding a new rival with every comment. All right, let's close out Honus Wagner. And as we do that, we close out the Simply Golden content set. And I got to say, I love this whole content set. I love it. There was so much to dig into. We got a lot of interesting cards, and there's some good debate. Vizquel, Belanger, the Bartell versus Andrelton Simmons. My Rabbit card, which I like. Honus, which I think's amazing. And you are pouring some ice water on that. So this was a really fun set. And I think what we're seeing here is that when defensive-heavy cards drop, then there's really good and meaningful conversation to be had. And on the offensive side, cards need to look a certain way to really be competitive. And, this week we didn't really need to worry about that because the focus was really on the defensive side. Any closing words on the Simply Golden content set for you?
Awesome. Loved it. Loved defensive cards. They're more interesting, like you said, than offensive cards to me because there isn't a lot of difference to separate them as much. And so I think a lot of it comes down to how they actually play in the game, and you can't protect them as well. So I think this is a really cool set. My only issue with it is why didn't we get this earlier? I would have loved to have all these options maybe in like August even. So do this earlier next year, please, Chris, if you're watching. I would love to see these cards earlier next year. Give me these cards. I love these cards. So
there's just no pleasing him, is there, Chris?
You can never please me, man. I'm still gonna beg you for peak Andrelton someday.
So that closes out the segment, which brings us to our 7th inning stretch, which is where we love to play everyone's favorite game show. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Zoomer. And the concept of this show is we show Kidneys 3 things from the 90s that he has to identify it. And he shows us one horrible Zoomer meme from today, and we have to make some sense of it. And whoever does it better wins the show. Let's get started. So first, and again, the theme for tonight is the biggest of the big movie stars. What movie was Robin Williams and Pierce Brosnan in that featured Robin Williams effectively dressing in drag in order to be a nanny of his kids?
I didn't know it was Pierce Brosnan, but I do know Mrs. Doubtfire is a classic favorite of mine, so it's a great movie.
Kidneys starting out of the gate hot, 1 for 1 as he nails down Mrs. Doubtfire, a movie that I do not think gets made today.
No, definitely not, but it is a classic and a very funny movie. Robin Williams is great.
Next, we have got this. So what we have here is Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio. So what movie did they share the silver screen on in the early 90s that was a commentary on obesity?
I do not know this movie. I also never knew Johnny Depp looked like that. He looks so different.
So young.
Yep. I have no idea.
Well, what you're missing out here is What's Eating Gilbert Grape? One of Leo's biggest early hits. I mean, look how young Leo is there. You can barely recognize him.
But I can still see it's Leo, but I've never heard of this movie, actually.
Well, Walnut was saying that movie history and having watched classic movies was one of your weaknesses. So that's what inspired the segment today.
I still old Walnut. What's it called? It's He'll know. I still owe Walnut that movie.
All
Pulp
right.
Fiction. There it is. Yeah.
Last one for you. We have got a couple of movie stars in their own right here. David Spade and Chris Farley in what 90s flick?
I don't think I've ever actually seen a movie with Chris Farley in it. I've only seen highlights. So I don't actually know what movie this is either.
Kidneys. Whatever your movie to-do list looks like, whatever the power ranking is or the priority list looks like today, throw it out and put Tommy Boy right at the top of the darn list. One of the funniest movies ever made. Classic Farley, classic Spade. Seriously, make it a point to watch this one and watch it soon. One of my personal favorites. I have to imagine the chat will agree. All right, so Kidneys, you are closing out the round with a 1 for 3. You batted leadoff with a ringing double, and were not able to bring them in to score. So that means that the burden on me to come away victorious is very low. So I am scared for what you have on the other side of this click. And it appears to be a video. Just to make sure you guys can hear that, okay? Okay. Now, I know that I've seen this cat. I don't know where or why. You know, it looks almost identical to the cat that you had on the meme last week, which was part of the arguing meme where it was Chris sitting at the table just releasing happy cards, and then you angry for being pulled out of bed to analyze them. Gosh, I feel like I've seen it. I feel like I've heard it.
You know,
but I don't know.
This is the meme I submitted.
No?
No, I think it was something else.
Okay.
Maybe you should check again.
Oh, no. What is this? Drumming on a Jardine.
This is what happens, Chris, when you don't give me pick on the sentence.
Oh my god. How is this even technically possible?
Shout out Swecky for deep faking me on this video and then editing it masterfully. I mean, this is just beautiful. Everything is right about this video. We don't actually have audio for this DRC, but maybe we do. I don't have stream audio. They probably have audio. Never mind.
Oh my
but
god!
It is glorious. It is so good.
What in the world? How in the world is this possible? How did they get your head onto there?
It's called a deep fake. He just goes in After Effects. He, if I understand it right, he just matches the guy's face, and he has a picture of me and then animates it to match his face.
Wow, this is incredible. I can't say that I know the meme. I feel like I've seen it. I feel like I've heard it on Twitter, but like I can't really place it. Can you give us some backstory here for the drumming guy and the bouncing cat that Swecky has customized for our purposes?
So, it is a man playing a tambourine to a very famous, I think it's Turkish song. And I probably got that wrong. Don't quote me on that. And it went viral. It got like 20 million views or something. And he was just singing along, partying along. And then somebody added the cat. And with the cat, it went even bigger. And people just started screenshotting it and making memes of it and making videos of it. Nobody has done anything I've seen like what Swecky did with it. So what Swecky did was unbelievable. But it is just glorious. It's normally the cat is just somebody jamming along, and while somebody's beating up somebody else is kind of the gist of the meme, and it is fantastic. It is great.
Well, I gotta say that you have outdone yourself. Swecky has outdone himself, and there's no way that I can rightfully claim victory when your submission was as strong as this. And I was left grasping for straws to really identify the origin. So even though you totally biffed it with What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and you couldn't identify Tommy Boy somehow, you're still walking away victorious. And I'm grateful that you and Swecky have brought this to our awareness here. But a shame that I was unable to take down the victory today.
I mean, all I'm saying is you boomers got to step it up. I mean, we zoomers are out here doing deep fakes and animating videos, and you guys have point slideshows. I mean, like, come on, guys. Get it together.
All right. So that concludes OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. Oh, wow. What a rendition. So before we jump into Bronze Tourney Bonanza, we are going to do our giveaway. So let me load that up now. Wow, that was just really inspiring. So the way that this giveaway is going to work is you are going to put exclamation point ticket in the chat, and then 3 people are going to walk away with 10,000 perfect points. So I believe I just opened it up right then and there. Beautiful. So we'll let that run for a minute or two as we bask in the glory that was Swecky's incredible deepfake work. I mean, the deepfake was absolutely the most impressive part, but putting Jardine on the drum and putting me bobbing up and down on the center field scoreboard, that's just a work of art right there.
I personally requested. I had the idea, but I didn't come up with anything. Doing the Royals ballpark and putting you on the scoreboard was his pure genius.
Wow. All right, so let us check this out. We'll give this another 15 seconds to run. Exclamation point ticket puts you into the giveaway. If you are lucky enough to win, you will need to DM me on Discord with your Out of the Park Perfect Team username with the correct capitalization, and then we'll get you those perfect points as soon as possible. All right, closing the giveaway down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. First winner, Real Lagasse. Second winner, Simple Enigma, Bronze Tourney player. And third is Tim Copius. So wait till next year continues his streak of winning absolutely nothing. Quite impressive at how cold he's really been in these giveaways. But we've got Real Lagasse, Simple Enigma, and Tim Copius walking away with 10,000 perfect points each. So again, guys, DM me on the Discord. And congrats to you. All right, so Bronze Tourney Bonanza. What are we doing and why are we doing it? Well, last week, at the end of OK Boomer, OK Zoomer, we did a long takedown of hitters and defenders in bronze. And we were doing it, A, because I was extremely salty that I gathered a ton of data for the PTCS and then was knocked out in Game 7 of the round before qualifying for the championship. And B, because those of you that are not salty and are moving on need this information. Need to have as best chance you can at winning the PTCS Koufax, which is an incredible card. As Mac Jax is gifting JPack 14. Thanks, Mac. All right, so let's dive in. And this is mostly review. This is the same slide we saw last week, so I'm going to go ahead and expand it all. But just as a reminder, we need to always be keeping our wits about what type of run scoring environment we're talking about. This is a very low scoring environment. The FIP is more than a half a run less than Perfect League. We've got very active base paths. In bronze, you got 1.2 additional base runs per player per 600 plate appearances. So you really need to be thinking about controlling that ground game in the form of stolen bases, as well as controlling base runners trying to take the extra base when they're at first on a single, and your right fielder is going to need to be in charge of stopping them from getting to third, or when they're at second on a single, and your left fielder is going to need to come up firing to stop them at home. And then there's also really horrible hitting in bronze. The average triple slash is 250, 301, 366. Whereas in Perfect League, you see the average 10 points better, the OBP 25 points better, and then slugging a whopping, 60 points better. So definitely a very low scoring, bad hitting run environment. And another thing, there's a ton of balls in play. So when you think about your defense, they are going to be way more active in bronze than they are in Perfect League or Diamond League or Gold League or any league bound by the 2010 baseline. The bronze K per 9 is 5.3. That's a whole 4.1 less than Perfect League. A whole 2, and from a walks perspective, there's way less walks going on in bronze as well. And lastly, the base runners are very precious. So bronze whip is 1.2. Perfect League whip or baseline whip is right around 1.4 as well. And then from a meta perspective, and this is less relevant for today's stream, the meta is wide open for bats, whereas the things that are sticky in the meta are more glove oriented. All right, let us jump in. So we'll first start with starting pitchers. And the way we're going to break this down is give you guys different options for the different styles of starting pitcher. And we're going with stuff pitcher, control pitcher, and then balance pitcher. So why would you break it down like that? Why would you care to know who the best pitchers are from a stuff perspective or who the best pitchers are from a control perspective? Well, you are building teams. You are not building a team that the spreadsheet says is best. You are building a team that is all going to have to play with one another. So if you're going to cut some corners from a defensive perspective because you want to get more bat into your lineup, you had better be stuffing your rotation and your bullpen with some stuff guys because you want less balls in play. You want that defense to have less of a burden to success, and you want to rely more on those strikeouts. And so that persona, the stuff-heavy starting pitcher, is what we have here. And one thing to note, because I wanted to cover as much ground as we could, I did not allow duplicates from kidneys in my list here. So he and I shared some on all of these different lists here, and I bumped the ones that we were sharing and threw on another one just so that we could cover more ground and cover more cards and more guys. All right, so I'll start with my stuff guys and then turn over to kidneys here. So my stuff guys are Vic Aldridge, Adrian, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this. I feel like I've gone the whole stream without mispronouncing a name, and I know this one is unique. I know it's not Morjon. Morion? I'm sure the chat's going to tear me apart for that. I'll live with it. And then Max Scherzer. And the reason I've got these guys here, and just some backstory on them. So Vic Aldridge is the number one most used pitcher in bronze. Number one most innings pitched. And there's good reason for it. He's a good pitcher, both in the rotation and in the pen. And he is one of only 5 starting pitchers that have a K per 9 over 6. So as you're looking to avoid contact, if you're looking to avoid contact, he is one of those guys that can help you with that. He's also got a 55% ground ball rate, too. So let's say you want to go heavy defense on the infield and hide some bad gloves in the outfield, Vic would uniquely be a good fit for that type of build. Moving on to Adrian. Let me look at the chat to see how I got it wrong. Moron says Fabic. Fire Red JP says Morayon. Okay, that works for me. Perfect. So getting back to Adrian here, he's got an even better K per 9 at 6.8 and an even higher ground ball rate at 58%. Now, the downside with Adrian here is his homer problem. So more susceptible to the long ball, and he is a left-handed pitcher, which means he's going to have to face some of those beefier right-hand bats, which we'll get to in a bit. And then last on my list is Max Scherzer here. Now, Scherzer's a fly ball pitcher. So if you are hiding a questionable glove in the infield, then Scherzer might be a better fit for you because he's less than 50% ground ball. He's still got the strong K per 9 at 6.3. But with Max Scherzer, the problem is his walk problems. Puts on too many via the free pass. So kidneys, you've got Dustin May, Tristan McKenzie, and Nate Eovaldi. Tell us why you got those guys.
Man, I feel bad. I didn't know you weren't going to pick duplicates, or I would have given you some of the good cards, man. Because I took... these guys are all probably top 10 bronze pitchers. May and McKenzie are probably top 5 bronze pitchers. They are nutty. So I didn't go for pure stuff guys when I looked at stuff. I went for what I consider a high stuff pitcher, which is mainly like 70 plus, but they still have good control and they have acceptable movement to me. And what these guys do is they're going to get probably a good enough strikeouts as a starting pitcher that I would consider them high stuff. And these are some of your top echelon of right-handed pitchers that are going to pump out strikeouts and are just really good overall, and probably some of your highest tier options as starting pitchers.
Excellent. Yeah, May and McKenzie both are on my current bronze build, and Eovaldi is a guy that I've run in the past, so I can echo your sentiments that you've got some strong submissions for the stuff team for the starting pitchers there. As we move to control, we've got some new names to take a look at here, and some names that are really emerging for me. And one of the more emerging names that I'll point out is Nick Neidert. So Nick Neidert is not someone who is old meta, is not someone who's logged a ton of innings, but is starting to be used more and more. And the story with Nick Neidert here is a very low walks per 9, only 1.3. And he's doing that with a great whip as well. So he's not allowing a ton of base runners via via batted balls. Now, the problem with Neidert is that his stamina is low. So someone might look at him and say, okay, can't be a starter. He's got to be a long man, got to be a stopper. And I won't argue with that person who says that. But from a rate stat perspective, Nick Neidert is doing things in bronze that are very noteworthy and worthy of consideration and getting onto your staff in some form or fashion. As we look at Brian Ricard, he matches that same walks per nine at 1.3, brings you a really strong ground ball rate at 56%. So again, if you're going heavy on the infield defense, a good fit for you there. A downside with Ricard is that he does have really low strikeouts. So you're gonna have a lot of batted balls. So even though he's got the high ground ball rate, the volume of batted balls is such that you're still going to get plenty of batted balls going to the outfield. Now, the last thing I'll say on Ricard here is that he's one of the few that has a quality start percentage over 50%, so able to log the innings and have the success necessary to get through 6 innings, yielding less than 3 more frequently than some of the other pitchers. And Scott Diamond I've got here for a lefty arm. People want optionality. They want the ability to run a righty staff, a lefty staff, and most of the meta arms are righty right now. So I was reaching for a lefty that could be part of this conversation, and Scott Diamond really fits in here. A very low walk rate, only 1.4 walks per 9 innings, but doesn't really strike out many people at all. So a lot of batted balls in play, and that's going to be a lot of times that he's facing a Harvey Keene. Harvey Keene, learned that one from last week. He's going to be facing some of the tougher hitters in the league, so not someone that I would run to the ballot box to support for part of a bronze build. But if you were doing something with lefties, I think Scott Diamond should be part of it. Now you've got Greinke, Bird, and Yanni. Walk us through why.
Greinke, Bird, and Yanni have been like the staples of my bronze rotation for as long as I can remember. Greinke was sort of the old god of iron before we got some of the live cards got buffed, like May, McKenzie, and Evaldi. And Bird has kind of come out of nowhere, and I'm not really sure why, but I know some of our bronze data collector friends, I'm not going to call out names, have him as their best bronze pitcher. And Bird has been really consistent and really great. And Yanni is just another one of those solid, really high control, decent stuff, but lower on the movement kind of guys. So that's kind of the build I like for a control pitcher. I feel like you can sacrifice movement pretty safely in bronze. Not a lot of people are running your recommended Nelson Cruz out there. And so avoiding the Nelson Cruz is going to be pretty good for these type of guys, but you don't see that too much. Bird and Greinke, I would say if you're running right-handed started pitchings are pretty much a must. Yanni, I like the flex in the bullpen because he gets a decent stuff bump, so you can work him either way on that one.
Yeah, and just to point out, stamina is so critical to these team builds. Of the guys that we've talked about, like they're all starting pitchers by trade. They're all starting pitchers on their card. But Dustin May, Tristan McKenzie, Yanni, Nick Neidert, all of them have lower stamina. They're not going to log very large, high quality start percentages. Those just aren't the guys for that. Greinke and Bird, those guys do have the stamina. Now, Greinke's numbers trail other starters, but he gives you more stamina. So that's like a classic trade-off. What's more important to you? Slightly better run avoidance or more innings eaten in an environment when you don't get any off days? And I've heard smart people argue both sides, that Greinke is a must part of the build, even though he's not one of the 5 best starting pitchers, and others argue that he's kind of moved past. That if you want to long relief him, go ahead, or you can even build a team without him. So that's definitely part of the nuance of building a staff. You need to make sure that all the innings are going to be accounted for, and you're not going to be walking yourself into absolutely dead pens by the middle of round 3 every time. As we move forward here, we talk about some balanced pitchers. So pitchers that don't necessarily pop for how many strikeouts they're getting or for how many walks they're not yielding. And on my side, I've got Merrill Kelly, Mike Minor, and Alex Wood. And as we talk about this, Merrill Kelly is the number 14 most used pitcher from a starting pitcher perspective. So pretty meta choice there. Has a lot of usage within the current builds. He has a solid whip. So someone that you can put out there is not going to be loading up the bases with base runners. And then as we move on to Mike Minor there, Mike Minor has a pretty strong quality start percentage, so he's able to get to the 6-3 more frequently than those around him, and he brings a very notable whip as well, so keeping traffic off the base paths. And then the same can be said for Alex Wood. So another low whip arm here, solid with the ERA, outperforms his FIP, and then another lefty arm to be considered for your starting rotation. Tell us about your balanced pitchers.
So, really, I'm here to shill for Aaron Savale. Aaron Savale is just a really overstated card, I think, for Brown's card, and I think he is really, really good overall. I think he's probably more of a back-end pitcher because I really like the Dustin May, Tristan McKenzie, Greinke, Bird, Cheerios, those kind of pitchers. So I like slotting Savale in, but I'm not really sure where his place is. I see a lot of hate for Neil Heaton right now in the chat. Neil Heaton is more of a specialist that can play out of the pen, in my opinion, but in certain scenarios, if you like to micro bronze tourneys, which is kind of on the up and up, you can play him versus people like API who like to play lefty lineups to counter the meta. And Neil Heaton will destroy him and make him cry and go home. So that is really what Neil Heaton's good for, is things like that. So if you like to micro bronze, maybe he's a card to look into. Dobnak is just somebody that showed up. He's kind of like a little bit worse version of Savale. So not somebody I'd super recommend, but maybe he's just an option on the table for you if you like more anti-power, more movement-based cards.
You think API is going to be upset you called him out on the stream?
Oh, well, API changes his lineup every other day, so it doesn't really matter what I say.
And looking up, it looks like I've missed some traffic within the channel here. It looks like Chuck and MacJack's now tied in the sub war at 26. And we also have Wait Till Next Year, not just losing the giveaway here, but dropping 5 gifted subs on the channel, going to T-Mist, Gucci Necklace, Jeff W., Shendog, and D-Wald. Thanks so much for the support. Wait till next year. One of these days, you're going to win a giveaway, and it will be sweet. All right, so that's the starting pitchers. Let's talk about the bullpen. And in the bullpen here, we'll start with the stuff guys. And I'm going to start with AJ Puck. Now, AJ Puck is not for everyone. AJ Puck is not for the faint of heart. He has one of the very highest walks per 9 of any pitcher that gets thrown in bronze. However, he does a good job with run avoidance, and he strikes out a ton of people. And in the bullpen, especially if you're trying to hide some bad gloves out there, that's not a bad trait to have. So AJ Puck I find interesting. Armando Benitez is kind of the same story, but a right-handed arm. He's got a slightly better walks per 9 there. A great ERA, outperforming his FIP to this point. And then Larry Sherry. So Larry Sherry and AJ Puck are both starting pitchers by trade. They get a little stuff boost as you go to the pen. And Larry Sherry here, a little bit of a high wire act in his own right with the walks per 9 and some of the home run vulnerability they can have on him. But someone who I've seen deployed successfully and have personally had on my last build in bronze as a stopper, someone for people to consider. Now tell us about your stuff, guys.
So I have guys kind of like AJ Puck, but they have a little bit less stuff, I think. But they have higher control and the low movement. So what they do is they don't walk as much as he does, but they still strike out a ton. And they're, in my opinion, your best bullpen arms is your Jonathan. I don't want to say that last name. Your Caleb Ferguson, your Vic Aldridge, and I have Adrian Morejon on there as well. Is very good. So those guys are hitting almost 100 stuff. Somewhere around there, like 9,900, and they have about 60-ish control, and they're just going to be probably your most elite pen arms in bronze.
So I think that I actually know how to pronounce the first name on your list, and given that we have such a bad rap for name pronunciation, I was really hoping to have the opportunity to execute here. I believe, and the chat will tell me when I'm wrong, that it's Loizaga. Say that with me now, kidneys.
Loizaga? I don't think so. But
hey, wait, Fire Red JP just put that in the chat. Dob on Discord saying that we're correct.
You got it.
We're changing our ways. Oh
They
man,
say they just call him lasagna, so I'm gonna call him Jonathan.
we get better every week at this, don't we?
You might be getting better. I certainly am not, but I knew how to say Morejon, and it made me very sad when you butchered it. So.
Yeah, I should have let you have that one. I could have taken
I took
Loizaga.
Spanish as a kid, and all I know is Donde está la biblioteca. That is the mountain I stand on.
All right. I think you got through your stuff, guys. I was too focused on Loizaga and getting the opportunity to pronounce it. So,
I did.
all right, let's talk about control, guys. Hey, what type of tourney are we talking about right now?
You know, API was already calling me out because I asked for his help on this one's. Oh, you stole one of mine. I like it.
What type of tourney are we? Is this a bronze?
Nah, irons are good, man.
Why
Irons
do
are
I
where
have
it's
an iron card on this list? Let me tell you why. So Charlie Root is an iron card, but he's got crazy control. And he's also a starting pitcher, so he gets a stuff boost into the pen. Now, the data that I have on him is admittedly small and not a significant sample yet. But I'm currently, for science, for the betterment of the community, running him on my main bronze team to see if it can be a sustainable type of success. I'll let you know if it works out, if you don't want to take the chance and throw an iron on your card, but it looks like it might just work. So stay tuned on that. Use Mero Petite. Oh boy, I'm back to butchering names. Whichever is appropriate there. You know, this guy is like an old meta type reliever. He became extremely popular around like the April, May, June timeframe. And honestly, he's never gone out of style. He's a fly ball guy. And what that does for him is it keeps him with a real low whip and really good run avoidance. So I still love Yuzmero. And I still think that he can belong within a bullpen that wants to pride itself on control and letting balls go and play. And then last but not least, we've got Bill Daly, who is the number 18 most used relief pitcher within bronze tournaments. Now, Bill Daly continually outperforms his FIP and has super low walks, so definitely a good choice in a bullpen as well. Now, you've got Gellner, Bryles, and Watson.
Yep, so Gellner is kind of a bronze staple. One of the few Seattle Pilots players, and he has 66 stuff, 65 movement, and like 80 something control. So just a really high statted card. He's been a great pitcher for a very long time. Tony Watson is something of a lefty specialist that honestly doesn't do too bad against righties, but might be a little bit too weak because of that. Righties getting a little bit of bump versus left-handed pitching, but just something interesting to throw out there. I think he's like absolutely crazy versus left-handed batters, so that's just an interesting option I think to have on the table. And Nelson Bryles, however you say it, him and Charlie Root, I ran on a bronze team, I want to say back in April or May. Ran them for a few months on my bronze team. Absolutely loved them, and they were not bad. I eventually took them off because I posted it in the Discord, I think, and people laughed at me for having irons on my bronze team. But I think I have a big enough ego now that I can come back and stand on the hill that I want to die on, that irons are good in bronze.
We will find out. You're running some bronze right now, aren't you, Kidney?
Yes, I am running, what's his face? Vic Power. So
Vic Power. Beautiful. All the irons you can handle in a bronze tournament. Let's move on to balanced pitchers. And here I've got Mike Minor, Paul Ossenmacher of Cub Lore, and then Raleigh Fingers, while you are bringing to the table Bruce Suter, Bobby Shantz, and Kiko Calero. So what do I have on Mike Minor? So Mike Minor is another one of my low sample size guys. He is not at the 1,000 innings that I like to have on someone before I kind of make a call. But on the innings that I have, he's got a crazy low ERA. I want to say it was like 2.7 or something like that. So he's someone who I'm looking at getting into a bullpen to grow that sample size and see if he can sustain it or if it's a mirage. He's also a starting pitcher, so it gives you a little bit more stamina. within your bullpen as well. And he's got a great walk or strikeout to walk ratio. So in bronze, you see a lot of guys who don't walk people, but they also don't strike people out. Then you see a lot of guys who strike a ton of people out, but they walk a ton of people. And Minor is a nice mix of having a decent K per nine, but still having a pretty low walks per nine to go with it. So an interesting arm that I want to get some more innings on in my data set. Paul Ossenmacher here, he's kind of an on-meta option. He's number 15 in innings pitched out of the bullpen within bronze meta, kind of your lefty specialist and just all-around solid. So someone who you can stick in that role and feel confident that he's going to perform for you. And then Raleigh Fingers, somewhat more lightly used than I expected. He's number 39 in innings pitched, but another contributor who's got a very strong ERA and WHIP and worthy of consideration. Tell us about your selections.
I mean, I got Bobby Shantz. Everybody was going, where's Bobby Shantz in control? Bobby Shantz is here. Didn't want to double up on him, give some other guys some opportunities. So Bobby Shantz is there. Bobby Shantz is probably your best relief pitcher. He's just very overstated for a bronze. He's great. Bruce Sutter is also fantastic. I think really high status card. I needed a third card, so I went with Kiko Calero. I played him for a bit. I didn't have the best results with him. So maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but overall, not a bad card.
And thus concludes the long con that was setting up our TBD versus DLL Bronzeageddon on Saturday. Every player we've told you is terrible. You shouldn't use any of them. No, I'm just kidding. Yep. This was all legit. These are all the arms and the considerations and the thoughts that we take into our bronze builds. But we are certainly looking forward to taking on TBD in Bronzeageddon 2020. So as we close out here, some rotation tips. Don't run out of gas. Within bronze, there is a less than 50-50 chance your pitcher is getting a quality start, even though we're talking about a really low run scoring environment. We saw the stats. Hitters are terrible. Pitchers are incredible. But even still, it's hard to log those innings. And this is because many of the starters have low starter stamina. So what does this mean? It doesn't mean you just say, all shucks. It means you need to build your bullpen accordingly. There needs to be enough guys. If you are not going to run the Greinke, if you're not going to run the high stam guys because you want better run avoidance, then your bullpen had better have some guys who can eat some innings in a long relief capacity, maybe in a stopper capacity. So don't run out of gas with your bronze builds. Making sure you don't want to cut off your left hand to save your right. So rotation handedness has an impact. If you're running all right-handed starters, then you had better have some left-handed arms in your bullpen, and vice versa. I just ran a team for 1,000 games, and I did 4 right-handed pitchers in the rotation and 1 left-handed pitcher in the rotation, and then I had my bullpen completely uniform. So the same number of righties, the same number of lefties with identical roles, because I just wanted to see how those innings would be delegated out by the AI, and 65% of the total innings went to lefties. So just keep in mind that the AI is thirsting for those lefties to go through to if you are running an all-righty rotation, and make sure you have those lefties, or be prepared to live in a world where your AI wants to go to a lefty and is going to have to go to a righty instead. Next, keep in mind the scary bats are right-handed. Jose Martinez, Alex Ochoa, one of the two Alus, Harvey Keene, got it right, and then Nelson Cruz. And oftentimes, these scary bats are platooned. So if you're going to run a lefty starter, just know that you're going to be opening up the door to some of these guys. Not saying you shouldn't do it. I run a lefty starter on my team, but it's something that you just need to keep in mind. And then just tune your defense to your staff. If you're going to run a high quantity of balls in play staff, lean more defense. If you're going to run a low balls in play staff, a staff that has heavy stuff, that is relying on strikeouts to get out of jams, then you can take some more chances and liberties on offense. You can have a Harvey Keene in the field. You can have a third baseman like a Frankie Gustine who's not going to flash the leather as much as like a Dressen or a Hanahan. You can take some of those chances and get away with it because you have less opportunities going out there. So that was part 2 of the bronze rundown. What did you guys think? And while the chat is collecting any thoughts to share with us there, Kidneys, any closing thoughts on on bronze. Any other thoughts that we haven't touched on?
I just want to address a good comment in the chat about how do we organize our pen. So I run a closer, 2 setups, rest middle reliever with one guy as a long relief secondary. Probably one guy as a setup secondary as well. I stopped running stoppers when somebody did a study and found out that relief pitchers who go more than 1 inning tend to have drastically worse results and the second inning in OOTP. And so that kind of killed stoppers for me. Bronze already kind of has stamina issues, so I've been running closers and everything ever since. So that's just kind of a thing. How many pitchers? I run the conventional 12 from Perfect Team. I know a lot of people have shifted towards 13 because starters do have less stamina. So 13 is probably better, and I should probably run 13, but I'm greedy and I like the platoon a lot. So
yeah, so you bring up a good point, and that's actually the next thing that I'm studying with my bronze build. So the bronze build that I put together in May and then literally ran for 7 months, 6+ months, until recently messing with it for PTCS was a 2-stopper build. It was a 2-long reliever build, and then having the rest of the innings go in middle reliever. And that build was so incredible. It was about 590 win rate when I built it, and then it decayed so slowly. By the time I changed it, it was at 555. So still very competitive. And then my first build after it was actually worse. So the 2-stopper build can and does work. One of the things that I'm testing now is, now that I've got new data, now that I've got a new lineup, I'm testing a different 2-stopper build, and I'm going to see if I find that same effect that you're talking about there, that people will underperform their global averages when deployed in a stopper mentality or in a stopper deployment, and we'll see if that rings true or not.
yeah, and I saw somebody in the chat mentioning this. I wouldn't run a closer and stopper. They pretty much serve the same role. Just a stopper is a closer that normally goes multiple innings. So I wouldn't run both. I would pick one or the other is what I would do.
Yep, can definitely agree with that. So that brings us to the end of our show tonight. A huge thank you to everyone who was part of the broadcast, who was contributing in the chat. Had a very lively one. Some monstrous thanks go to Chuck and MacJax, who had themselves one heck of a subscription gift war, and for that I am extremely thankful. We had Wait Till Next Year dropping 5 subs in the chat as well. You are the man, and you will win a giveaway very soon. I have confidence. We had Crash dropping a huge bit in the chat, so thank you so much for that. And then looks like Luke and API, so everyone just very much appreciated. Love all the support. You know, we do this because of people like you, because you guys support the work that we're doing. You guys contribute to us, you guys chat with us as we're doing this. Hope that you guys had a lot of fun on the show tonight, and Kidneys and I will go back to the drawing board and figure out what's going to cap off our next This Week in Perfect Team next week. Now, if you have an idea, if you have something that you've always wanted to see, or you'd love to see Kidneys and I break something down, throw me a line on Discord. You know, oftentimes it's a suggestion or it's just a passing thought that ends up making up this segment. So if you've got something that would be uniquely valuable or interesting for us to go through, you know, throw it over. No guarantee we can do it, but would love to take a look. So Kidneys, any closing thoughts for the audience tonight?
No, overall, really just enjoyed the set. Really cool set. Excited to see what we have coming for next week. And that's about it. It was fun. It was fun doing bronze. Definitely throw us some ideas, because I'm out of ideas for what to close the show with. It's only been 12 weeks and you've already run me dry. So good luck for the rest of my expenditure on the show.
Yeah, I think if we don't get any ideas, then it will just be like 15 to 20 minutes of us trying to mimic the Brett Phillips dance. And I don't think anyone wants to see that.
You know, I haven't watched that yet. That sounds fascinating to me. Maybe I can pretend to be rich and I can play the guitar really badly, because I can't play guitar while you dance.
Oh, man. Can you imagine Austin Meadows walking off Game 7 of the World Series? That would have been something. That's what happened in the.
That's crazy.
In the
yeah,
broadcast.
I heard about that. I heard about. Everybody was talking about that. That's insane.
Yeah, awesome. So again, if you're new to the channel, please drop us a follow. Please click the notification bell to know when we go live. And if you have been gifted subs in the past, the best way to express your appreciation or support for the channel is to renew those subs when they do come due. So thanks for all the support, everyone. And with that, Kidneys and I are out.